Welcome to another edition of BuckShots with Luke and Trevor. I think we had Trevor and Luke. Whatever. I may have put the title wrong in the name, but that's okay. We will overcome. We were off last week, mostly due to my part. Had some stuff going on at work, and Trevor made the decision. Maybe he could get some other stuff done. Then we could regroup come this week. And to be honest, didn't really miss much last week. It was a lot of All Star stuff, a lot of but not a whole lot of Buck stuff went on, other than a couple signings here and there. And I guess Giannis and Thanasis in their own competition in the All Star game or All Star competition, skills competition. But we're not even going to talk about that. We'll just touch on the Bucks game against the Nets last night, and then we will preview some stuff down the road for this coming week's games, as well as maybe talk some big picture stuff for the rest of the season to go. So I guess just to hop right into it, Bucks first game back from All-Star break was yesterday. Which Trevor, before we even get into the game, I wanted to ask you this. I think the Bucks are the only team to not play. Maybe one or two other teams were the only team not to play on Thursday and Friday. Do you take any stock into that, or is that just bad scheduling, or do you have any opinions about that?
I think it might just be bad scheduling. The schedule's weird to me. Like the Bucks were above everybody else by like 5 or 6 games for a little bit,
Hmm.
and then they just gave them a random lull in the middle of it. I understand like you don't want to have teams playing nothing down the stretch so that they're super rested, but the timing for other teams making up games just felt kind of weird this year.
Yeah, and so obviously coming out of All Star break, you're always worried about a little rust, right? The guys are off for basically a week and a half. Doing whatever, spending time with their family, going out to clubs, doing whatever they're doing. And I mean, it's expected you're going to see some regression, right? Come the first game back, maybe just to get back into the swing of things. And I think that was proved last night against the Brooklyn Nets team, who was down Kevin Durant and newly acquired Ben Simmons. This game saw the Bucks lose to the Nets 126-123 in Milwaukee. On the Bucks side of the ball, Giannis 29, 14, and 6 on only 8 of 20 shooting. Chris Middleton added another 25, 3, and 7 on 8 of 13 shooting. And then I feel like we say this every single episode, but Bobby Portis had another career game. 30 points, 12 rebounds on 11 of 18 shooting, including 8 of 14 from the 3-point line. Trevor, I know you mentioned you want to talk about this game a little bit, but I'm just going to ask you right off the bat here. Um, Bobby Portis hitting 8 threes is awesome, right? It was tough to find some help. You got a little bit from Drew Holiday, you get one from Holiday, three from Middleton, but other than Middleton, nobody else was in double digits for 3-point makes. I should say more than one 3-point makes. I'm sorry, but with Bobby Portis scoring 30, is he? Do you think? I guess I'll phrase my question this way because I've been asking this around. With Brooke Lopez, I believe he returned to practice earlier this week. At least he was spotted at practice. I don't know what that entailed. But once Brooke Lopez inevitably returns, does Bobby Portis stay in the starting lineup and move Middleton kind of back up to that 2, Giannis to that 3, and Bobby Portis to that 4, or do you keep Grayson Allen in and bring Bobby Portis off the bench?
I think for most teams, you bring them off the bench just as like a really good sixth man. And then we're talking your seventh man is Serge Ibaka, and your eighth is either Bembry, Matthews, or Carter. That's pretty good. Um, but I think for a lot smaller teams, I think he's nice to keep at the 4 because defensively, if you have Holiday on the 1, Middleton on the 2, and Giannis on the 3, and then Portis 4, Brooke Lopez 5, with that length, I don't know how a smaller lineup is going to get anything done, or a really big lineup like Cleveland. You'll probably need
Hmm.
something like that. So I think for extremes in height, for team starting lineups, use it. But other than that, I'd say bring them off the bench.
Yeah, and especially with Pat Connaughton being hurt right now, it feels like the Bucks don't have that kind of that spark plug off the bench. Obviously, I know it's tough to talk about this with both Lopez and Pat Connaughton injured, but it sounds to me that Pat Connaughton may be back yet before Brook Lopez. So I almost wonder if they may experiment a little bit and run kind of a small set. Maybe Pat Connaughton start him at the 3 a couple of games. Not saying that this is going to be a playoffs or anything, but I'm wondering if an experiment is going to come out. It's going to be hard to bench Bobby Portis, but just run him off the bench a couple games and see what works. Obviously, we saw how well that worked in the playoffs. Um, but on the net side of the ball, you know, Kyrie Irving, it was an away game, so Kyrie Irving was playing. I did think I read that the Nets are lifting that mandate, or New York's lifting the vaccination mandate or whatever. So it turns out that all this was for nothing. But Kyrie Irving, 38 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists on 14 of 26 shooting. Seth Curry, 19 points on 4 3-point makes, and Andre Drummond, 17 and 12. So Trevor, you and I have talked about the Bucks not being able to stop big guys inside. Not saying that Andre Drummond's an elite inside talent or anything, but I mean, he has elite rebounding. If in regards to the whole scope of NBA history, this was another game where Brook Lopez probably wins this game, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, he definitely does. Andre Drummond isn't even that good either. Like he was
Hmm.
7 for 9. I think both of his misses were like easy ass layups,
Hmm.
right? So if you see a little regression there, and the one thing I did like from the Bucks though is that they did near the end of the game they did start fouling him more, and not just a regular foul, like a foul so that he's not gonna make it too.
Hmm.
Except for one very key time where they didn't do that, but because he's a horrible free throw shooter, so as long as you can go straight up and if you're beat, just wrap him up. That's really all you need to do against him.
Yeah, and then before we let you loose here and give your thoughts on this game, I just wanted to bring up two other things. Cam Thomas is a stud at basketball. I know he only had 9 points, but he is a flamethrower off the bench, and he dropped to like the 27th pick right in the Nets' hands. I know, the Nets are kind of up in the air right now. It's hard to judge him to see without Ben Simmons playing, but I think he's a perfect addition to this Nets team. If Durant, if he's has a crazy night where he's off, which we have come to expect that will probably never happen from Durant, or Kyrie Irving if he's not playing, whatever. Cam Thomas can easily give you 15 points off the bench, which is huge for a team like the Nets who need that bench scoring with them losing Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert and D'Angelo Russell in the last couple of years. Um, and the other thing that I wanted to bring up is I don't remember, so it must not have been that important. So, Trevor, I'm going to let you loose here, and maybe I'll work off you, throw some questions your way as you're giving your tangent.
Sure. So, like watching the game, all Bucks fans know when the Bucks lose, they very rarely lose because they're the lesser team, right? Usually, it's shooting themselves in the foot. And I want to give credit to Ty Windish from the Eurostep podcast. He tweeted out, I think he summarized it perfectly. We see all the Bucks on social media, all they talk about, and he said the Bucks never shut up about building good habits every day, just to turn around and not make any free throws, turn the ball over constantly, and take terrible threes early in the shot clock over and over and over and over. And he's 100% correct. Like in this fourth quarter, the Bucks were horrible. I mean, look at Drew Holiday, 4 for 8 from the free throw line. That's not acceptable. Portis bricked 2 in a row. In games like this, that's not acceptable. Giannis was 10 for 12 and then was only 2 for 4 the rest of the way. That's not acceptable. There was a time, I think, just over 7 minutes left. The Bucks had a 7 point lead, got the stop, coming up with the ball, and Giannis just chucks a three
Hmm.
at the start of the shot clock. That's something you do in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. Maybe if you're red hot.
Yeah, that's something you do to get in your groove.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking, you're up 7, right? And so you chuck it up, you miss, the Nets get the ball, they score. Let's say they waste 10 to 15 seconds and they score. Now you're up 9 with under 7 minutes to play. And if you get a stop, you have a chance to really get this thing off the rail, the momentum. Like Brooklyn can't come back from that, not without KD.
Right.
And they chuck the three. And even if they don't score, right, that's an extra 10 seconds. We saw how important that time was at the end of the game, and they just do this shit over and over. Giannis does this thing with the shooting. multiple times he's trying so quick to get up in sets. He forces pass to Drew. That was a turnover. Chris Middleton picked up his dribble because he panicked. Turnover. They do this all the time, and I understand these. The Bucks won the championship. I understand it, but I hot take. I don't really care. Until the Bucks grow up, until somebody gets in Giannis's head, and I've said this a long time, they will not win another championship unless they get something like last year again. I'm
Hmm.
not saying last year doesn't count, right? But this team might be the dumbest team in the NBA, and they do this shit over and over again. And if you want to win a title, you're going to have to go through Brooklyn, the Cavs, the Bulls. You can't do this. And time again, they show lack of growth. And I think it's time that we understand that, yeah, we've had bad games in the past, but this is a pattern. And like we've seen before last year, that pattern is going to stop you from winning the title.
Right, and just to speak on that real quick, you mentioned that the Bucks have to go through the East, and the East, I would, in my mind, maybe a lot tougher than it's been in the last couple Bucks playoff runs. I mean, Chicago's playing incredible basketball right now, right? DeMar DeRozan's playing incredible basketball. They look like they're probably going to finish, with the top three seed in the East. Cleveland, I don't think anyone expects Cleveland to, make a big playoff run or win a championship or anything, but they're definitely a team that can give, a good team some trouble in a first round, second round, something like that. Philadelphia's playing. Joel Embiid's having his MVP season. Adding James Harden, I know we've only seen one game of that, but I'm sure those two. I still think that pick and roll is going to work out incredibly for that team. It's kind of hard to judge the Nets without Ben Simmons. But you have kind of these outsider teams too. Like the Hornets aren't a bad team. The Hawks aren't a bad team. These are all teams, and I should mention the Heat. I think we both hate the Heat on this podcast, but they're a solid basketball team. These are all teams that right now may look better than the Bucks if we're judging it off of that last game. So it's no cakewalk this year. The Bucks are gonna, like you said, there's right now is the time with the home stretch coming down here that the Bucks get rid of the stupid shit that they do. Tighten up on all ends and show the NBA that the Bucks are still one of the better teams in the NBA. Which may be tough to do because Trevor, to be honest with you, when we came up with the idea for this podcast, I thought that we would be talking. We wouldn't have so many questions about the center position. I thought we'd be talking about Brook Lopez ad nauseum on this show, but it'll once we get Brook Lopez, the show will have a lot better structure, right? But it's just concerning right now. I agree with you, and I'm almost wondering if a little bit, like I had mentioned off the top, is due to kind of rust and getting back into the thing. But this is probably not a game you should lose, right? To Brooklyn, to without Kevin Durant. I mean, and going to your point on the turnovers, these stupid turnovers, the Bucks had double the Nets turnovers last night, 14-7. That's not a championship team, and it seems to me, like you said, taking these crazy shots in transition with 21 seconds left on the shot clock. Bobby Portis firing from all angles. It feels a lot of times like Chris Middleton maybe gets left out of the loop, and he's forced to take tough shots, in late-game situations, which he's kind of made a career off of a little bit here the last couple of years. But I don't know. Do you feel that same way that Chris Middleton almost sometimes feels like he gets phased out of the offense?
Yeah, for sure. And that's what makes last night even more dumbfounding to me. Drew Holiday had 7 turnovers. I mean, he had as many as the entire rest of the Brooklyn Nets team. So he has 7 turnovers, and yet he's pretty much involved in the offense just as much as Chris Middleton. I get he's a great player, but there comes a time when you have to look at Chris 8 for 13, 3 for 5 from deep. Drew Holiday didn't shoot too shabby either, but he couldn't hit free throws. He was turning the ball over. Why? Why is he involved in the offense as much as Chris? So you got to go with the hot hand, and they just didn't.
Right. And to add to that, I remember what I was going to say. Um, that game at the end, it got dragged out a very long time due to fouls and Brooklyn missing free throws. But right there is the reason why you foul at the end of games. I know a lot of times, probably 99% of the time, a team that's maybe down five with under a minute left, they you already know that they're going to lose, right? But there was three, four, 3 or 4 points when the Bucks were down three under 10 seconds left that I felt like, oh, we can still tie this up, still get a missed free throw and get a shot. And I think the Bucks pulled that off to perfection right at the end of the game. That foul in, and they had a perfect final play drawn up there. Giannis just missed a three. I mean, it's pretty easy to get a full court inbound when you're throwing to Giannis. But I do think that they played well in that late game. I know it's tough when Kyrie Irving gets to the line, and I was talking about this with someone else who said when Kyrie Irving gets to the line late game, that shot's not going to miss, so you're going to have to draw up a play. But other than that, this game just kind of felt like meh to me. I don't know. This should have been a win, but they lost. I'm not too mad about it. It does drop the Bucks to the 5th seed in the East, which isn't great for a team coming off of a championship. But once again, the Bucks have been absolutely ravaged with injuries, and you would have to imagine the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season we'll be able to see a full healthy Bucks lineup and see what late push they can pull off.
Yeah, and to your
Go
credit
ahead.
about not losing the game, Buck shot 52% from the field, 42% from deep. You can't lose those
Right.
games. And to your point about the fouling, I think the Nets did a fantastic job
Agreed.
too. Not only the Bucks, but I mean it just drives me insane when coaches don't foul and let a team get up a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the chances of the shot going in are small, right? But it's a hell of a lot smaller chance to foul and you have to turn it over and they make another shot. So I thought the Nets played it perfectly.
Yep. Yep. I believe they did too. Trevor, while we're on the Nets here, I know we kind of talked about it a little bit when that Harden Ben Simmons trade went through, but given that both teams are healthy, are the Nets a team that you're concerned about come playoff time?
It'll man, so much depends on the seeding. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be really interesting because it sounds like he won't be back for a long time, but or Simmons won't be back for a little while, but this East is so clogged that Brooklyn could still make a run to one of the top seeds.
Mm-hmm.
It depends. Like the Bucks right now are at the 5 seed. If they come out, I don't know if they'll play Brooklyn until the conference finals. And at that point, I don't know if, you can trust the Nets to be fully healthy with all the injury problems they have, with all the COVID stuff coming up. I'm sure there'll be a wrinkle in that. So I don't know. I mean, I guess a little bit, but if they are on that 2, 7, 3, 6 side of the bracket, that is going to be a gauntlet. And I don't
Yeah.
know if any of the teams are going to come out of there unscathed enough to make a run, depending on how it plays out.
Right. And the thing that worries me too about the Nets is Kevin Durant has, done everything that you can do as an NBA player, right? He has MVPs, he has scoring titles, he has championships. The one thing that seems to elude him is his really, I guess, his own championship. Everyone knows he got two with the Warriors, but it really felt like last year that of course, he wants a championship, but knowing Kevin Durant and his antics on social media, his antics with the media, this would really help shore him up in his legacy, his eyes with NBA writers. And it looked like last year, that he wanted that. If Foot was 2 inches off of the line, we may be talking about the Brooklyn Nets being champions right now, and the Bucks looking for their first one in 51 years. So you have to imagine that Kevin Durant will be all ready. He's probably the most talented player in NBA history. If not, the argument is definitely there. And he's probably the best player in the NBA right now when everyone's healthy. But outside of that, Trevor, let's talk some pickups for the Bucks. And I got some sun coming in my room, so I look like Jesus or something. But the Bucks, I think since the last time we talked, they have picked up DeAndre Bembry and Javon Carter, with kind of those roster spots that they filled out after that Serge Ibaka trade. So Trevor, just off the bat, are you happy with these signings, and what do you expect from them? Do you expect these guys to play big roles in the playoffs, or is this kind of a thing where just get some bodies and get some guys to fill some spots until we can kind of limp to the playoffs?
I think a little bit of both. Bembry was very close to having a Tony Snell stat line last
Mm-hmm.
night: 11 minutes, 1 assist, 4 fouls. But I didn't hate it. Like played solid defense. We don't need him to score a lot, especially, the Bucks offense in terms of shooting looked pretty good. So, you really don't need that. The only thing I worry about him is his 3-point shooting career wise. Obviously, this year, I think he's shooting 42% with the Nets. Career wise, he's down in the low 30s. So that's cause for concern, but his defense is great. And Javon Carter, I hate West Virginia in college. I love West Virginia players in the
Mm-hmm.
pros. They call them Press Virginia for a reason. It is hard to play press. And
Yeah.
so when you get a player who can press, do it well, and that's part of the system they've been in, you saw it with this defense, right? I don't think plus minus is the best stat, but he was plus 10 last night on no points, 0 for 1 shooting. He's just another defensive guy, kind of like a mini PJ Tucker with less offense. For a guy getting 10, 15 minutes a game, I think that's all you need.
Yeah, and speaking of PJ Tucker, our fearless leader Zach Bruner was in our comments here saying that the Bucks feel like they're missing an old school, gritty, steady leader that PJ Tucker ended up being. And to Zach, I'm going to say we have Grayson Allen for that now. Um, but just to give my thoughts on Javon Carter, we're both big college basketball guys here. We're doing a lot of college basketball stuff coming out. But Trevor, you're right. Bob Huggins' system there at West Virginia kind of turned Javon Carter into one of the best defensive players in recent college memory. He would just shut down point guards in the Big 12, and he's kind of done that a little bit in the NBA. He's bounced around. He was at the Suns. I think he had to stop at the Clippers. He's that guy who comes off the bench that you don't need to score. You just need to prevent their sixth man from scoring, which I think is huge right now, especially with George Hill being out. Like I had mentioned before, Pat Connaughton being out. Javon Carter's going to play that gritty role that PJ Tucker kind of played last year, and may pick up fouls here and there, but he's going to make it damn hard for opposing guards to score on him, which is a welcome sign in my mind.
I got a question for you. Kind of revolving around these two guys, Carter and Bembry, obviously great defenders, lose a little bit shooting wise. Wes Matthews last night, 28 minutes, 2 for 4, 1 for 3 from deep, 5 points, but minus 18. Defense is starting to wane.
Yeah.
Once we get into the late seasons, or late part of the season, Hill, Connaughton, Brook comes back, there are going to be less minutes to go around. Playoff time, are you putting in Carter or Bembry instead of Matthews because you think you need the defense? Or are you going to sacrifice a little bit of defense for maybe a little extra offense?
Yeah, and I had actually thought about this before. It obviously comes down to what situation you're in, right? But do you think that you necessarily need Wes Matthews 3-point shooting? Because we saw what Chris Middleton did in the playoffs last year. I guess it all depends on what Brook Lopez is doing. We know that he can step out and hit threes. Bobby Portis, if he continues to play like this, I don't necessarily think that you need Wes Matthews to play. I mean, at all, because what does he do? Especially with Pat Connaughton and Grayson Allen coming back, what does he do better than Pat Connaughton or Grayson Allen? And I think it's hard to find something when maybe like we had mentioned before with the Nets team. I brought up maybe a Cam Thomas. I'd like to see Javon Carter on him, give the rookie some pressure. I definitely think Javon Carter could be a thorn in the side for a young team like the Bulls or Cleveland, who can just disrupt enough to get them off their game maybe early, and then they're struggling to catch up for the remainder. But I think at this point for the Bucks, I think the offense is there. I mean, they scored 123 points against the Nets. It's the defense, it's the post defense, it's guarding these six men, stuff like that. So I'm more inclined to say Javon Carter or DeAndre Bembry, however that matchup shakes up to be.
I would agree too. Like he was one of the best defenders on the Bucks. I thought that's why part of why they lost the series in the bubble against the Heat because they
Hmm.
didn't have Wes on Butler enough. But he's 35 now, and that series was over 2 years ago. And to your point, offensively, like this is a new team. We have Grayson Allen, we have these guys. Even Serge Ibaka can pull out
And
and be
Serge
a
Ibaka,
stretch
yeah.
guy. You know, to your
Plus,
point,
plus Jordan Nora too.
yeah, I mean, Jordan Noir will take some dumbass shots, but if you just need a three, he can sit in there, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, I mean, offensively, I don't think he's really a 3-point guy you put in anymore. Defensively, I think he takes away from the team. I would agree. I think once you get in the dog days of the season, I think Javon Carter, Bembry kind of suck up his minutes. I don't think he needs to play.
Right. And I'm as we were talking here, I'm trying to think in my head. I'm searching for a role for Wes Matthews, and there's really not one that comes up. Once if you need a win. I'm not saying that he's a bad player or anything, but the Bucks just have better younger players that have proved that they can play that role as good. If not worse than what Wes Matthews has shown in his time at the Bucks, both his first and second time here. Um, Anything else you want to mention about the Nets game, about these pickups before we move on to previewing some games this week?
With the Nets game, I think, kind of on the Wes Matthews train, Wes played more minutes than Grayson Allen. I think we need to start putting to bed the fact that he's an elite defender. Again, I
Yeah,
don't love plus minus. I'm not going to go into a tangent on it, but Grayson Allen was plus 20 and Wes Matthews was minus 18. That's a pretty big difference,
a
right? Usually
38
there's
point
some
difference, right? Yeah.
usually there's some dink and dunk with, a couple points doesn't mean much, but 38 points is a lot.
Hmm.
And for the extra, you know, all the extra stuff that Allen brings you offensively, I don't think he's that much of a liability defensively compared to Matthews, where he should be getting less minutes. I mean, there is no way Matthews should be getting 6-man minutes off the bench to me.
Yeah, totally agree. And obviously, I'm sure maybe some of it's a little experimental with guys who are injured and out. But I think that we're both putting our stamp of, if this is an experiment, we're both putting our stamp of, let's not do this experiment anymore. Let's just go out and win games right now. I think that that's the most important thing for the Bucks is just winning games, however they can win. The kind of experimenting period, maybe it's over. In my mind, that's what the first maybe 2/3 of the season is for: is getting lineup set, getting what you want to see in the playoffs set, and after All Star break, getting practice with those things and getting it ready for playoffs. And like I said, I don't know that Wes Matthews fits into that. Into that, maybe a couple minutes here and there to spell some guys, but I don't think that I want Wes Matthews playing big minutes come down the stretch in playoffs. And Trevor, it sounds like you agree with me on that.
Well, and to your point about experimental, don't look now, but the Boston Celtics have been one of the best teams in the NBA since Christmas. They're only a half game behind us. And
Hmm.
we drop to that, suddenly we're in the sixth. We're now on that, kill side of the bracket. I mean, the East is loaded to your point, but man, if you're six, now you're really not playing at home at all. So that's really bad.
Right. And then Trevor, let's say that the Bucks do end up, not one of the top four seeds. They don't host a playoff series, right? Just looking at the top four, I know a long way till the season ends. Is there one team that you'd rather play over the rest between the Heat, Bulls, 76ers, and Cavs?
Absolutely. If I'm a Bucks fan, I'm cheering for the Bulls to be first, and I'm cheering to be fourth or fifth.
Yeah.
Because I saw somewhere against teams with a win percentage over 600, the Bulls are 2-12.
Hmm.
What DeRozan has been doing is incredible. We're not going to get off on a tangent. I think he's the MVP at this point, but this team has not been able to beat top teams. Their point differential is plus 2.2. I mean, they're scraping by against some bottom feeders, and they haven't been in the playoffs for years.
Hmm.
So if you're telling me that the Bucks can play, Cleveland, who would be tough, play Cleveland and play the Bulls and suddenly be a series out of the finals when the 76ers, Heat, Nets, Celtics are all there, I'd take that in a heartbeat.
For sure. And then just kind of going off of that, um, a Heat 76ers series would be fun to watch. I know I don't like either one of those teams, but I do think that both those teams match up well together, and I think they could produce a great series. Um, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. Right? It's going to be obviously a very fun end of the season and maybe a little stressful for Bucks fans, but that's nothing new if you were a part of that playoff run last year, watching all those games. So yeah, we'll move forward with that. I mean, you would imagine that the Bucks are good enough to be a top four seed in the East. But if they, like Trevor had said, if Giannis is taking threes with 21 seconds left in the shot clock, or Drew Holiday dribbling off his foot, or whatever is happening, this is not a championship team. And Bucks fans, I think, maybe more casual Bucks fans are going to be fairly disappointed come that last week of the season, first playoff matchup. But to get into this coming week, the Bucks are off today. They are at home against the Hornets on Monday. That game will be broadcasted on NBA TV. The Hornets currently 30-31, good for ninth in the East. Bucks 36-25, good for fifth in the East. I'm reading off the score app here. They have key players of LaMelo Ball scoring just under 20 points per game, while adding 7 and 7, and then obviously for the Bucks, Giannis 29, 11, and 6. Trevor, is this a game leading into young guards that maybe Javon Carter could stifle a little bit? You think Javon Carter guards LaMelo Ball at all in this game?
I would hope so. I don't think Bud gives him the trust. I think Bud's super slow to bring guys along. I think that's stupid, but I think that's why he continues to play 10 to 15 minutes a game max.
Yeah. So the Bucks, I think, over the last 3-4 playoff runs, have been known to push the ball up and down the court. They've had a very high pace. Charlotte actually has the second highest pace in the NBA. So this may be a track meet kind of game. Obviously, both teams are kind of young, I guess, and both teams are athletic. They can run, they can shoot. Um, Bucks, they average 14 3-point field goal attempts per game, while the Hornets 13.7, good for fourth and fifth respectively. So, Trevor, do you think this is going to be a high scoring match? All the signs point to this being a track meet plus getting up a bunch of threes. Are you anticipating this to be like maybe a 130 game, or a 120 like we saw last night? Or I guess just give me your overall thoughts of the game. But it seems to me that a lot of scoring should happen in this game.
Yeah, I mean, and especially with the Bucks defense as of late has been bad, right? I mean,
Hmm.
they've lost 4 of 5, but in their last 7 games, they have given up less than 120 points twice, and that was to the Clippers without anybody basically, and the Lakers in a blowout the whole game.
Yeah.
So, um, the defense is going to give up points, and the offense is probably going to score a lot of points too.
Right. And then just looking at this real quick, something that just stood out to me. The Bucks are tied for 20th in assists. They average 23.4 per game. Um, that's probably due to such high usage rate of Giannis, right? But is that a little concerning moving down the stretch that the Bucks are towards the bottom in, I guess, assists, but kind of getting everyone involved to score in the game?
Yeah, yeah, they get Giannis involved a lot with the pick and roll and oftentimes force passes inside, turnovers. They need to have some more design plays for Grayson Allen. I mean, you
Yeah.
talked about it kind of through messages last night. I mean, Bobby Portis, there were a couple times when he was red hot and they just continued to run pick and roll slash ISO ball. They got to start drawing up plays again. I don't know why they haven't, but they need to start doing that again much more consistently so that you get that ball moving and those assists.
For sure. And then the one other thing that I wanted to point out about this game is that Charlotte averages 11 offensive rebounds a game. That's tied for sixth in the NBA. We have been talking ad nauseum this whole year of how are the Bucks going to get rebounds without Brook Lopez. Obviously, Giannis averages 12 a game. Great. Bobby Portis is not a great rebounder for his size. Chris Middleton is not a great rebounder for that 2-3 position. Drew Holiday is an all right rebounder for a point guard. But I mean that's something that I'm going to be watching for is how will the Bucks box out and how will they limit Charlotte's offensive rebounds. Trevor, I know I might put you on the spot a little bit here, but is there any strategy to keeping Charlotte off the offensive glass?
It's tough. I think there is. I think one of the things the Bucks can do is crash the glass offensively and defensively. However, that would limit transition, limit the pace. I think that would be a really good idea against a team like Charlotte. I don't know half court how they would be able to beat Milwaukee at home in
Right.
a slower paced game. That's just not their style. Um, I don't think the Bucks are going to do that, but I think that's the way to do. Have everybody in the paint, get the rebound, slow it up the court, play more of a playoff brand game. And I mean, we've played track meets the last 2 times against them, and I think we're 0-2. So might as well try that out.
Is this a game too where maybe Giannis works a little bit more inside rather than floating around the 3-point line, or should it seems it should be right?
It's got to be. If his
Yeah.
ass takes more than 5 threes, that's a failure. Unless he somehow hit three and they're all
Right.
wide open with 1 second left in the shot clock.
Right. And then finally, I'll give my answer first on this, Trevor. But is this a must-win game for the Bucks? I think it's getting to that point. Um, you can't lose against teams that aren't currently in the playoff picture. Like these games are scheduled for you to win to kind of boost that record a little bit. And you had mentioned before that Boston is probably the hottest team in basketball right now. They're only a half a game behind. We had not thought about Boston all year, right? They've been out of the playoff picture, but Boston is one of those teams. I always say it. They're like, they're like the Cardinals for the Brewers in baseball, or I guess like Michigan State in the Big Ten for Wisconsin. You want these teams out. You don't want to see them because you know what they can accomplish. You know that they can make a run, and I do think that Boston is one of those teams that you need to do everything you can to avoid them getting ahead of you in the standings.
I don't think Charlotte's a must win, but I think this week you have to go 2-1. You can't go 1-2. You can't go 0-3. Certainly, it's a tough week. Kind of a little forecasting. Charlotte, Miami at home at Chicago. You should easily be able to win two of these games. You have to win two of these games, especially as a team who has lost 4 of 5. Especially with one of those losses coming against Portland, another one coming against Philly. The way in that manner, and with last night's the way that game played out, you got to take 2 out of 3. So I wouldn't say it is much must win, but if they lose that game, you better win the next two.
Yeah, it's probably about as close to must win as you can get without it being must win, right? So Trevor, you had transitioned us there perfectly into the rest of the week, where the Bucks, I guess if we count Sunday, they're against three teams that are top two in their conference. They have the Heat on Wednesday. I guess we can cover each game singularly, but this is a rivalry that's kind of brewed over the last couple of years, right? Ever since Miami went to the finals and the Bucks blew that 2-0 lead against the Raptors, Miami Heat fans have loved to talk after I think they get swept in the finals or lost 4-1 to a Lakers team who's honestly not very good. They weren't very good at that point. But the last game, Miami beat the Bucks December 8th, 113 to 104. Jimmy Butler is obviously a catalyst for this team. Bam Adebayo, I think he had either a high 30 or 40-point game last night. Um, how worried are you about the Heat, and how worried about this game are you?
About this game, I played it simple. I just think they're gonna lose. These are games the Bucks lose
Mm-hmm.
against Miami when they should win. This whole week against Charlotte when they should win, at Chicago who's handcuffed that they should win. So all these games scare me.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of the season, though, I don't think Miami scares me too much right now. The way they play kind of reminds me of a light version of Thibodeau. It's going to
Okay,
run
yeah,
you to the ground, and that's kind of the only reason. I don't think the minutes or anything else stands up, but it wears and tears on that body, and they are deep. But I don't think they get, especially with all the injuries they've had. The Bucks probably aren't going to play them in the first round, and if they play him in the second or third round, I don't think they play Miami fully healthy.
right.
If they do, then I'm very worried because Miami's going to have home court. But until then, I'll pump the brakes a little bit.
I think I'm in the same boat with you. I mean, I think we both, whatever the fans want to say or anything, I think we both respect that Miami is, a good basketball team. I mean, we saw what Jimmy Butler did, 2 years ago in the bubble. He kind of tore it up. Bam Adebayo, maybe he's not a top five center in the league, but he's a great young talent for Miami. And like I said, they've kind of turned into a grit and grind kind of team that was going to run you. They're going to play physical with you. They're going to get under your skin, and they're really going to give you the best shot that they can. And I don't necessarily know that the Bucks have the capacity to handle that right now, given injuries and kind of some rust, and like you had mentioned, losing 4 of the last 5 games. So yeah, this will definitely be a tough game. Um, like you had mentioned, if the Bucks lose on tomorrow to the Hornets, this may become a must-win game. Like Bucks can't lose these games against Eastern Conference teams, um, and maybe this will probably add another chapter to a brewing rivalry. I would love a Bucks Heat Eastern Conference Finals, by the way, because I'm a big love intense series, and the fan interaction going back and forth would be great. Trevor, you're shaking your head at that, and I think I know why. But if you want to go off on that a little bit, I will prepare for our next segment here.
Just hell no. I don't want to play them. I'd rather like their fans are like I'm sorry, but their fans are
Hmm.
dumb. Like at least the ones on Twitter that open their mouths and type on their keyboard. They they're not smart. They don't know basketball. If I'm going to lose to somebody, I want it to be two fans that deserve it, two fans that love their team unconditionally, and two fans that don't walk out on their team in the
That's true.
NBA Finals. I mean, come on.
That's true. How many teams in the East I have good fans outside of the Bucks? Pacers probably.
Ooh, I'd have to look
Um, I
at
don't.
the
Yeah,
standings.
Celtics have good
Heat.
fans.
Let's go through. I got to pull up the standings. All right. Bulls. I think they're decent.
Yeah,
I think they're decent. I think they've waned a little bit, but that's to be expected with their team. 76ers, I'm going to actually say they're good because they actually did support Ben Simmons a lot.
that's fair.
That's impressive. Cavs, meh, right? Meh. Boston, yes. Toronto, yes. Brooklyn, no. Charlotte, no. Atlanta, no.
Meh. Yeah.
Washington, no. New York Knicks,
No.
I'll
Half
give 'em a pass, man. I'll
it.
give 'em a pass. It takes a special type of belief to be that shit and think it's you still have a chance every year. So I'll give 'em
Right.
a pass on that.
The
We'll say an incomplete grade.
the Knicks kind of just go off of that. They're like Cowboys fans, right? They're an incredible fan base who love their team. But every single year I hear Knicks are back. Knicks are back. This is a chance the Knicks have, and every single year they do absolutely nothing. Um, but I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you if you had anyone else you
No,
wanted to bring up,
it was
but
just Indiana. I'll give some credit to Detroit. Their team is just so freaking awful
mhm,
that. But yeah, I would say at most probably half the teams.
yeah, okay, that's fair. And one of those teams, the Bulls, the Bucks play on Wednesday. They have to go to Chicago, which isn't that big of a travel day. Uh,
Friday,
on
Friday
Friday, I'm
for
sorry.
Chicago.
On It's not that big of a travel day, but I don't know what the drive is down there. The flight, maybe 2 hour drive from Milwaukee to Chicago, probably about a 45-minute flight. But DeMar DeRozan, like we had mentioned, is playing the best basketball of his career. He One thing I wanted to bring up that I forgot to when we mentioned DeMar DeRozan, he broke a Wilt Chamberlain record, most games in a row with 35 plus points, shooting 50% from the field. I don't think people understand how incredible it is to break a Wilt Chamberlain record because that dude was doing everything back in the '60s, right? So DeMar DeRozan, what I like about him before I guess we preview this game is he hasn't really adapted to the NBA, right? He's not that great of a 3-point shooter. He's not a total, lockdown defender or anything. He's just playing his game and he's worked on his game and this game is clicking right now in Chicago. Is that what you're seeing too? Or is there something that you're seeing different that DeMar DeRozan is doing than he's done the whole rest of his career?
Yeah, to your point about him being effective, like this is not a guy that just stands and dunks. This is a guy who takes a ton of mid range. So with
Hmm.
that comes a lot. His game winners have been threes too. So when he stepped up, but yeah, I mean he's been incredible. I still wonder how this team is going to work in the playoffs. Like I said, their
Hmm.
record against great teams has been atrocious. And I still don't know how it's going to work come playoffs, right? If those three stop falling, they're done. They don't have any other way to win in terms of their supporting cast. But what he's done right now has been incredible. And I mean, especially with the injuries, I mean, good Lord, this team has gone through everything. So for what he's done, hats off to him.
Right. And then just to talk about this game a little bit, Lonzo Ball's out, Alex Caruso's out for them, and I believe they had one more injury. I don't know if
Patrick
Patrick
Williams.
Williams is out too. So you had mentioned that I wanted to bring up. The Bulls do not have a lot of, I guess elite 3-point shooters on their team. I mean, Zach LaVine can get hot, Kobe White can get hot. Outside of that, I mean, where are threes coming from? Io DeSumo, probably not. Javante Green, probably not. Troy Brown, he's not going to give you much. Derrick Jones is not going to give you much. The Bucks have to stop 3-point shooting this game, right, in order to win this game.
Yeah, they definitely do. And it's going to be an interesting game. Obviously, the last time the Bucks won 94-90. I'm really I shouldn't say excited. I am not excited. I'll be very intrigued to see how the whistle goes this game.
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan is a good player. there is no way in hell this man should be getting 18 free throws a game. And
Hmm.
there is even less chance he should be getting 18 if Giannis is getting 12. That's just how it works. This dude takes mid range. I don't know what the refs were on. I don't even want to get into a whole tangent. But if he gets 15 or more free throws again, what are we doing here? Like, come on.
Right.
Harden's fouls are starting to take again. The point of emphasis has clearly gone away after the All-Star break, and I really hope it doesn't continue, because what's the point of changing the rules if you're not going to enforce it for the whole season?
Exactly. And then just to add one more thing about the Bulls, I think one of the most underrated or more underrated pickups for them was they got Tristan Thompson, who at one point in his career was an elite rebounder, kind of an elite offensive rebounder. He was a big part in those Cavs teams that went to those 4 straight finals. Just getting the ball and kicking it back out to LeBron, obviously in this case, probably kicking it back out to DeRozan or Levine or whatever, I think is huge. I'm not going to talk about the Bucks rebounding struggles without a big guy again, but maybe that's something to watch for again. See if they out rebound them. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say the interesting thing is his free throw percentage, 45% from
Yeah.
the line. I think it is the last 10 or whatever. I mean, he's not a good free throw shooter, so it'll be very interesting to see. Kind of reminds me of a worse version of Andre Drummond.
Hmm.
So I mean, if you can get Vucevic out of the game, their guard play is incredible. And to your point, they have been making the threes this year, but last time they played the Bucks, threes weren't falling. So if you get Vucevic out of the game, or DeRozan out of the, you get one player, you knock down one domino, this whole team is falling down. That's no
Right.
disrespect to the Bulls.
Right. So do you expect this to be a win? I guess I'll ask that. I ask bluntly.
No, this game's on ESPN. Um, I wouldn't be shocked if the Bucks go 0-3, and that's not me trying to be pessimistic. It's just the fact the Bucks have lost 4 or 5, and they struggle with all these teams. It's on ESPN national TV. I would expect DeMar DeRozan to get 15 free throws again, and I
Hmm.
don't think the Bucks are at a point offensively or defensively where they can overcome that right now. And
Right.
the Bulls are hot. They have all the confidence at Chicago. That place is going to be electric.
Hmm.
Um, I don't see the Bucks winning. They should, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, it'll be a tough one. I think in all sports, I guess Midwest fans always come prepared and ready to support their team. I think all Wisconsin fans believe that they have the best fans. I think all Chicago fans believe they have the best fans. The one thing that Midwest has that maybe some other parts of the country don't have is valued sports fans, crazy sports fans. So this will definitely be a fun game. Like you mentioned, it's on ESPN. So I would assume 6:30 game. I hope this is not a Stan Van Gundy game, but it very well could be. But moving, like you said, yeah, this should be a win. The Bucks need to win this game, especially going off on the theme of the show. If you lose to the Hornets, lose to the Heat, this is probably a must-win. But I think we're both landing on the idea here that it's very possible the Bucks can go 0-3 next week, which would be a huge detriment to their season. That would make for a lot harder work come the following couple of weeks and the home stretch. Luckily, on the horizon after the Suns, the Bucks have the Thunder and the Hawks, which may settle it down a little bit. But I know Trevor, you giving me kind of a does it really matter kind of look.
I mean, hell, they might go 1-1 in those games too.
Right,
We see what Trae Young can do. So
right.
who knows? Second toughest schedule to end the season, though. That's not good. But at least we our second last game is against Detroit, so I would assume we can at least win that game.
Right. So moving forward, I think we're both in the mindset that 2-1 is the goal on this stretch. 3-0 would be incredible. I don't think that's going to happen. In my mind, I'm thinking more of a maybe between a 1-2 and 2-1. I know you can't happen, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. 0-3, like I said, would be horrible. But the Bucks need to win at least one of these games in order to keep their season on track and to provide themselves some ease moving forward down the stretch. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, and Phoenix at home. I mean, you have a rest day between each of these games,
Hmm.
which is incredible too, right? Because we talked about Charlotte, Miami at home. You travel to Chicago, come right back home. So there's no excuse either.
Right.
So the rest, injuries, obviously there are injuries. you got to get the job done. They haven't to this point most of the season in games they need to win. Will that change? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, nothing else. Much more I need to say. I don't think. I think we hit pretty much a lot of what's going on with Bucks basketball right now. Um, Everyone who's watching, if you're watching a replay, whatever you're doing, please follow Flurry Sports on Twitter. Follow at Luke Reimer at Trevor Land 2. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of basketball stuff coming out with the tournament right around the corner. We'll have a ton of conference previews coming out. Zach and Henry are going at it with NASCAR again. And maybe we'll have some USFL stuff coming out. See if baseball ever gets going, we'll definitely get some stuff going here and there. But definitely stay tuned because we have a lot of exciting stuff coming out. We might do a couple shows here and there for college basketball stuff. So stay tuned. Like I said, follow Flurry Sports, follow at Luke Reimer at Trevor Land 2, follow everyone that writes for Flurry. We're pushing a lot of stuff right now, trying to get you and everyone else the best sports experience you can have. On that note, Trevor, anything else you want to send us off on? I guess that's it. Go Bucks, and like we said, watch for those rebounds. If we're right, let us know in the comments next week, and we'll see everyone next Sunday at noon. All right, peace.